The last patient. The last patient. The old hospital stood abandoned, its windows boarded up and its doors chained shut. It had been closed for years, ever since the last patient died of a mysterious illness. One night, a group of teenagers decided to explore the hospital. They had heard the rumors about the place, but they didn't believe them. They thought it would be fun to spend a night in the old building and see if anything happened. One night, a group of teenagers decided to explore the hospital. They had heard the rumors about the place, but they didn't believe them. They thought it would be fun to spend a night in the old building and see if anything happened. The teenagers entered the hospital through a broken window. They made their way through the dark, dusty corridors, laughing and joking. But as they explored, they began to feel uneasy. The air was thick with dust and decay, and the only sound was the echo of their own footsteps. The teenagers came to a room that was filled with old medical equipment. There were beds, tables, and machines, all covered in cobwebs. The teenagers started to explore the room, but they quickly realized that they were not alone. In the corner of the room, they saw a figure standing in the shadows. The figure was tall and thin, and it was wearing a long white coat. The teenagers couldn't see the figure's face, but they could tell that it was watching them. The teenagers froze, their hearts pounding. They didn't know what to do. The figure didn't move, but it seemed to be getting closer. One of the teenagers finally found the courage to speak. "Who are you?" he asked. The figure didn't answer. It just kept getting closer. The teenagers turned and ran. They raced through the corridors, their shouts echoing off the walls. They didn't stop running until they were outside the hospital. They stood in the parking lot, gasping for breath. They looked back at the hospital, but the figure was gone. The teenagers never went back to the hospital. They never talked about what they saw that night, but they never forgot it either. The next day, the teenagers went to the library to research the hospital. They found out that it had been built in the early 1900s. It was originally a sanatorium for patients with tuberculosis. But in the 1950s, the hospital was converted into a psychiatric hospital. The teenagers also found out that the last patient to die in the hospital was a young woman named Sarah. Sarah had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and she had been a patient at the hospital for several years. She was found dead in her room one day, and the cause of death was never determined. The teenagers didn't know if the figure they saw in the hospital was Sarah or not. But they knew that whatever it was something evil. And they knew that they would never forget it.